Earlier today, we focused a lot on macro issues, the stuff that's being done at a policy-making level. We spoke about infrastructure investments, particularly industrial infrastructure. We spoke about policies. We spoke about managing debt levels and boosting the fiscus and affordability. This afternoon, we're focusing on the things that happen at the heart, the community level, the level of society, the impact on humanity. And we start off by focusing on a fundamental issue, and that is food security. The United Nations, just pre-COVID, estimated that citizens across the world who were technically undernourished came in at 821 million people, undernourished. The World Food Programme in recent times says those who are facing a hunger emergency are literally hungry, are 42.3 million. And we know that there's a confluence of the food security issue with issues around conflict, stability, displacement. And we're going to find out now what can be done in raising capital at a multilateral level, in forging cooperation so that the most vulnerable among us still have the dignity of putting food on the table, accessing a doctor and a clinic when they need to, children staying in school. We're talking the social infrastructure issues, the soft heart and home issues now. And leading this conversation, I'd like to introduce to you Alvaro Lario, the president of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, as we talk about food security.
Thank you very much. As you said, it's about the social fabric, it's about the social capital and investments. So distinguished friends, excellencies, President, it's a pleasure for me to address you here today. And I would like to especially thank the OPEC Fund for the invitation and for hosting us. I stand here as the president of IFAD, and there would be no IFAD if we had no OPEC. IFAD was created in the 1970s, and it was created actually after a time of terrible famines, and this was a new kind of organization. It was a financial institution that was focusing on rural areas, on small-scale farmers, and it was also the product of the OPEC countries that actually put it together. They provided the first 20% of its financing, and it has been a unique institution. By now we have evolved, now we are co-investing with the private sector. We have gotten 2 credit ratings, so I think it's an institution, but we always remember that we started with the OPEC funds, and we have had a very valued and long-standing partnership with the OPEC fund. We have co-financed more than 120 projects in over 90 communities, strengthening the resilience of millions of people. So the title of this forum focuses very much on unleashing the potential, and as the moderator was mentioning, the potential many times is about the millions of rural people. That's where the poverty lies. 80% of the poverty lies in these rural areas. And for us, this means about building communities and building societies in a vibrant and sustainable way, but also in a way that generates income and jobs. Without many times, we see how when women have access to the assets, have access to a lot of the increased income or land ownership, this translates into better nutrition, translates into better education choices, better savings. So everything is very much connected. Every week, actually, there's 2 million new babies in the world, and this is a figure whereby I think we need to focus on the fact that these new babies need to have the same opportunities, no matter where they are born. And as the moderator was mentioning, and the figures that are out there, this is not the case currently. And this is, as I mentioned, what IFAD is all about. It's about hearing what the communities need, providing the tools, the resources, the access to finance, the access to land, the access to water, the access to markets, to receiving a fair value and a fair price when they are transacting, building farmers' organizations that can come together, can access credit, insurance. And I would like to very much show you for a couple of minutes a short field visit trip that will help you visualize what we are talking about. Please, if we can have the short video. Thank you.
The Sahel, a sprawling semi-arid region across Africa, stands at the forefront of climate change. Rising temperatures and unpredictable rainfall patterns pose significant threats to the livelihoods of its millions of inhabitants. This vulnerable region grapples not only with environmental challenges, but also complex security issues aggravated by scarce resources. In response, IFAD, in collaboration with other Rome-based agencies, WFP and FAO, introduced the joint SD3C program, a comprehensive initiative aimed at addressing the root causes of the Sahel crisis, with a special focus on empowering women and youth. In the Sahel, where agriculture and livestock sustain most livelihoods, land degradation and weather extremes caused by climate change lead to recurring food insecurity and malnutrition. Yet the Sahel holds immense potential, boasting substantial groundwater reserves and abundant sunlight that can be harnessed for photovoltaic energy. This potential can be unlocked through strategic investment. If provided with adequate resources and opportunities, the young population in the Sahel can play a pivotal role in improving food security and enhancing the resilience of the region. Through collaboration with governments of the G5 Sahel countries, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, and Senegal, the program reaches over 100,000 rural households, benefiting around 850,000 people, with 50% being women and 40% young people. Supporting them involves adopting climate-smart farming practices, rehabilitating land, providing seeds, and building water infrastructure, as well as strengthening farmers' organizations, improving access to services and finance, and facilitating cross-border trade. In rural communities of Djibouti, herders now have improved access to water and rangeland. With support from IFAD, the Djibouti government funded water infrastructure and rangeland improvement, reducing the workload on rural communities and shortening the distance livestock cover to reach water points. Through these programs, the Rome-based agencies are fostering sustainable solutions to stave off the most detrimental impacts of climate change and build a more resilient future for the inhabitants of the Sahel and Djibouti.
Thank you. I wanted to especially show a partnership, not only about IFAD, but how we can all come together, just as we come together with the OPEC fund. You have seen what transformation of rural communities is about. For us, it means economic transformation, but also environmental transformation and social transformation. It does not matter whether the business we're talking about is about small-scale farming, fishing, herding, or any other form of agriculture production. We have a track record with long-lasting results. We measure through impact assessments. In the last replenishment, which is a 3-year cycle, we increased the income of 77 million small-scale farmers, and I think that's a very impressive figure, and that's why we have the trust and the reputation of many of the communities as well as the governments. I mentioned that 80% of the world's poorest people are actually in rural areas, and I think that agriculture is one of the ways really to make it a business, and especially for small-scale farmers, in a way to raise this ability of having further income, further production. In fact, half of the food we eat is produced by small farms under 5 hectares. And this provides already a figure that tells you how important, how relevant they are, not only for food security, but also for income generation. As an example, in Africa, more than half of the jobs are currently being done or being taken by small-scale farmers, and I think that's important. I also mentioned that we have 2 million babies every week, actually, but that we have also 160 million of children that are currently undernourished. And when you have in the first 1,000 days of your life this type of impact and shock, it just continues for the rest of your life. So it's very important that we manage to collectively address the issue of healthy and nutritious food for children. The cost otherwise for the global economy is estimated at 125 billion every year of having, as an example, in Africa, 30% of the children are stunted under 5 years of age. So I think that's very important. Our focus is very much also in Africa. 50% of our programs, of our core resources go to Africa. We're increasing it to 60%, and we do see a lot of potential for the economic growth, in this case of jobs. As we know, there's tens of millions of jobs that are needed every year, but also because Africa has 25% of the world's arable land. So it's a matter of access to the tools, to the resources, to the services, to make sure once more that farming can be a viable business. You saw in the video that the innovation and technology are very much part of the solution. And I think climate-smart agriculture, which can increase productivity at the same time as minimizing the impact into the environment, will be very much key. When we talk about sustainable farming methods, we're talking about agroecology, we're talking about crop rotation, we're talking about integrated pest management, and these are many of the investments that we have had together with some of the partners in the group, the Arab Coordination Group institutions, the OPEC Fund, and this relates to, as an example, solar-powered irrigation systems in Rwanda, real data time access to farmers in Morocco, linking smallholders to financial services, to insurance. So we very much count on the OPEC Fund to do a lot of the work with us in many of the institutions that are here present in the room. So how to really increase the amount of financing, increase the amount of investments that are directly linked to global food security, but also to global stability. Because when we talk about forced migration, when we talk about security, in many cases it relates to the lack of opportunities. And I think this is a very important challenge that we can all tackle and address together. From our side, from IFAD, we continue to work with all of you to unleash the potential, the human potential, no matter where any children is being raised right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your poignant interventions, President of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, Alvaro Lario. I think also from what you've described today, then innovation is another subcontext of what we're talking about today. Innovation in funding models, deployment of capital, innovation in technology and how we use it within urban planning. And now we're hearing about innovation in how we support farmers, especially smallholder farmers in farming systems, and preserve their incomes and make them resilient.